Welcome to the Oddschecker Cheltenham preview podcast. I'm joined by Cheltenham Festival winning jockey Nick Scholfield, who is also an Oddschecker ambassador. I'm joined by Harry Whittington, trainer of 3 Cheltenham hopefuls this year. Andy Holding, our resident tipster, and Mike Spence, who is a pro punter and owns a couple of runners, although none on the Friday, which is the day we're going to be going for today, so don't be too downhearted if he's not quite as vocal. Starting off with the Triumph, and to my untrained eye, this looks like a hell of a race and a tricky one to call.
I think it's a brilliant race. It's incredibly open. I think it's a classier race than we've had for a few years. But without a real standout at the same time. I think there's the overall quality of the race is probably a better race than usual. I actually think that the best form here might be through Farclat, who's a jukebox jury gelding with Gordon Elliott, who's running 2 graded races. He's very highly regarded. I mentioned it in one of the other podcasts, the one on for the Wednesday, that if you were to watch the split screens of the juvenile race from the Leopardstown meeting, that Farclat was second in at the same time as watching Sam Crows. They near enough hurdle every hurdle at the same time, and the juveniles are right upside Sam Crow when they cross the line. The obvious question is now, why am I not putting out Mr. Adjudicator? But I do think that Cheltenham will suit Farclat more than it suits Mr. Adjudicator. Apple Shakira's obviously an incredibly promising sort. She looks very good, and I know she's very highly regarded, but I think Farclat will run his race. I think I'd be very surprised if I think he's a more consistent sort than Mr. Adjudicator, so he would be the one that might flop out the bag. I think Farclat's very tough. I think he's very consistent, and I think he'll run a very big race in the Triumph on the Friday.
Farclat is 8-1 with a few firms, Sky Bet and Hills amongst them. Sky Bet, non-runner, no bet. The other ones you can do, get that with 188, 888 and Bet Victor, but you probably don't need it because you think he's probably going to run. Andy, how do you approach this Triumph?
That's one of usually the best trials, the spring juveniles, throwing up, winners down the years like Arcana. They usually go good galloping. It's a grade 1. And it was running at a decent pace. As Mike's already pointed out, I got exactly the same set of numbers. It was similar to Sam Crow. So they're obviously 2 very good juveniles. But I also agree with Mike with at the 2 Farclat. He reminds me of Tiger Roll, who got beat in that race before he went on to Triumph at Cheltenham. I just think the track will suit him better. And he kind of took the running up a little bit too early for him as well. He was almost in front too long. He ran a race back to front like he did the time before when he came off the pace behind Espoir d'Alan. So I think he's a big player. However, I do think the horse that didn't run in the spring juvenile missed the gig because I think she had a runny nose. It was Willie Mullins' horse, Stormy Island. I've backed this horse at big prices ever since she won first time out. She won by 57 wickets. It's an unbelievable amount of distance. First time out, you could say, well, everything else must have been rubbish, but her time figure that day was absolutely unbelievable. Propelled her by a mile to the head of my speed figures for juvenile. And even though she's only had 1 run, she's done a time in keeping with what I normally get Triumph Hurdle winners doing. And there's a potential of obviously her improving even more. She's got a much better time figure just with 1 run than Apple Shakira's done in 3. And she's available to back at almost double or treble the price. So I'm a big fan of her. I certainly wouldn't rule out We Have a Dream. He's the opposite. He's a little terrier, a little street fighter. He did well to beat Sussex Ranger when he won the Grade 1 at Chepstow. He's a good hurdler, very sharp, and I think he'll go well. So I'd be very, very keen to take on Apple Shakira if I was a bookmaker, because I think you've got Farclat, Mr. Adjudicator, We Have a Dream, and Stormy Island, who's going to be taking these into areas where they're not used to. So I've backed We Have a Dream at a massive price, and I've also backed Stormy Island.
We Have a Dream is 9-1 now with Betfair. Stormy Island best price 8-1. Interestingly, we do a competition with bookmakers traders where we ask them all to we give them a certain allocation of points and they choose their anti-post bets. Bet365 allocated 8 of their points, 8-point win to We Have a Dream, and fittingly they go 5-1. So obviously some other people out there agreeing with you there. I just want to touch on a couple of other horses. Saldia was obviously an interesting horse who won first time out for Willie Mullins the other day. I want to know how you guys...
Absolute desperate time. If that wins the Triumph Hurdle, I'll eat that mic
There you go.
I'm a huge fan of Rhodesian, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I was about to say,
you know, I think Alan King knows what a good juvenile is, and he's had plenty over the years, and you know, I know how much he holds this horse in high regard. So, you know, he's got plenty of gears, hasn't he? And he's straightforward, and you know, settles well. I suppose the jumping was the question mark, but he was much better
Did you
the
draw
last
a line
day,
through
and
that
he's
question
just.
right now? Or is it sort of
I thought he was, you know, good enough to be able to, you know, jump round in the Triumph, and I just really like him. You know, I think he's got a lot of class, and been really impressed with him, and I think he'll run a big race.
Nick?
Yeah, I think you need a proper stir for this race. You know, Sarkander's obviously gone the same route as Rhodesian did, winning the Adonis, coming on to thing, and I thought his jumble was adequate. And for me, the Triumph hurdle, you don't need a horse. You need a horse who jumps well, but it's not such a setter. You only jump 2 hurdles in the last 3 furlongs or 4 furlongs, so you can get away with sort of missing a hurdle and still being. It's a very long run, 2 out to the last. But I've just been massively impressed by Apple's Shakira. The way she seems, the further the race goes, the better she gets, and I just can't. Just visually, she's just been really impressed me, and just speaking to a few of the Henderson lads at home, you know, that she's held in massive regards, and I can see, you know, JB McManus winning this race this year as he did last year.
Nearly 30 lengths, so in the 3 races, winning distance combined here. Unsurprisingly, given the state of the race, between us, I think we have basically tipped up every single horse at the top of the market. So good luck, listener, picking the winner there, but strong cases made for a fair few. County hurdle now, again, have little to say, so going to open up to you guys to tell me where we should be looking.
Hunter's Call, surely. Still got a stone in hand.
Yes, I remember. Yeah, we spoke about this
If
earlier.
he gets in,
coming to you. So Harry, this is your nap of the day.
should get in, shouldn't he, Andy? I think he was awesome at Ascot, and you know, Ollie Murphy obviously is having a fantastic first season training, and you know, he obviously knows you know, what he's doing, because he's obviously learned from a master as well. But you know, I just thought he looked very well handicapped at Ascot, did it very well. I believe that Jack Kennedy keeps the ride, so I've been told. I think he's asked Mr. Elliott and Mr. O'Leary if he can ride Hunter's Call, and I believe that is the plan. So I still think he's got plenty in hand. I think he's the one to beat.
10-1, he has generally been clipped into 8s in a few places, so that could be one to get on before. And I think he's a little bit under on the exchange as well, so that 10s may not last for too long. Mike, anyone quite catch your eye?
Hunter's Call caught my eye, to be honest. I think, yeah, if he gets in, obviously, if you back him now and he doesn't get in, you get your money back, so as long as they intend to run, which they will, as long as he's not injured. Yeah, I mean, it's such a hard race. It's not really a betting race for me, but if one horse did stand out, it was Hunter's Call. I thought that was a very competitive race that he won very impressively at Ascot.
Yeah.
And he's going there.
And they haven't run him in between, have they? They've just gone, okay, we'll keep us.
Kept him fresh, saved his mark.
Yeah.
And yeah, as Harry said, I believe that Jack Kennedy's keeping the ride as well, which shows the
confidence.
The regard in which he's held.
Did Elgin finish 5th in that race? Hunter's Call.
Put me massively on the spot.
Sorry,
now,
I'm just throwing it out there.
I'll just talk.
Yeah, I think he did.
Because if that's the case, the form is obviously very good.
Silver Streak was the horse that was second.
I think Elgin was 5th.
Elgin was favourite, wasn't he? Favourite.
Well done. Elgin's gone on to win the race at Kingwell.
Yeah.
So he travelled great. He stayed on well.
Elgin 6th. Yeah. So about.
Yeah.
6, 7.
It looked very good, and the handicap wasn't overly harsh. I think he got up. It wasn't. I can't remember what he did go up, but he
went up.
What he could go up. Yeah, 137.
Almost not high enough for the purposes of this race.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get in, but I reckon the race will cut it quite considerably. Just a couple of novices to mention. They're not necessarily county hurdle types, because it often goes to a battle hardened handicap. But what's wrong with you? I can remember the name of now. He beat OK Corral, and
33 is a bet fair.
The reason I think he could be a very smart horse is the day when he won at Newbury, they spent probably about 5 or 6 seconds before they actually jumped off that day. So his overall figure was a little bit distorted compared to Kalashnikov. But I timed timed all the runners in the handicap and compared it to What's Wrong With You when they went past the path, going past the stands to the line, and the Henderson horse was quicker than Kalashnikov.
Really?
So he's run a rapid last circuit, even though it took him a while to get to that point. So it showed me that he's a horse of the highest quality. And there's a horse from Willie Mullins called Sands End, who's entered in a multitude of races. I think he's in the... I think he might even be... No, he's not in the Albert Bartlett. I think he's still in the 2 novice races, but he's also in the handicap and the Martin Pipe. But he beat a horse called Jessica Hounds called Forge Meadow, who was a very useful mare, and Forge Meadow's won since. So I'd be interested to see what race Willie Mullins decides to run him in. But they're just 2 novices, I think, could be very well handicapped.
Interesting. It looks like a bit of a minefield. Nick, how would you kind of approach this from that perspective?
I'm just going to go for a bit of a bigger price. Flying Tiger. Nick Williams, very clever trainer. Obviously won the Fred Winter last year. Is crying out for a fast run handicap. It's £6 higher than when he won the Fred Winter, but I think the new course has played massively into his strengths. And speaking to Dickie after Wincanton, the elite hurdle, the Kingwell hurdle the other day, he's just crying out for better ground. So if he gets that bit better ground, I could just see him coming from the back and running it on into a place.
He's around 20 to 1 with Boyle Sports and some bets there. So a few darts in the county hurdle there. Onto the Albert Bartlett now. Obviously the third of the novice hurdle races over 3. Looks again like a pretty difficult one to call. Some smart types in there and more good, interesting runners for Nicky Henderson.
Yeah, it looks the most competitive novice hurdle of the 3, I think, on the 3 weighted for age races over the week. I mean, Sam Crowe and on the blind side have scared a lot of runners off there, and anything that sort of had half a chance isn't seemingly running in the Ballymore, and they're going there. So it's not a bad race. It's not a top class race, but it's probably a very good renewal of the Albert Bartlett, which is never the better race of the 3 anyway. I wouldn't know where to start. I'd be amazed if it's not about 7 to 1 the field on the day, and everything that's the price it is now isn't bigger. I mean, there's the one that caught my eye was Tower Bridge, which is JP horse, which they're talking about supplementing. I mean, the favourite, Cracking Smart, has a very solid chance. I mean, he's run over 2.5, 3 times now, and really run as if 3 miles will suit. And Gigginstown have got a very good record in the race. I think he'll be a solid and worthy favourite on the day, but it's going to be such a competitive race that I wouldn't want to be having a bet at this far out, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, I've said I wouldn't say anything, but the one, I think Chef de Zobo, if the ground is on the soft side, won't be the price. There's 9 to 1 available now, and that strikes me as a fairly decent crack. Andy, who are you looking at here?
I do think Chef de Zobo has got probably the most potential going forward of this field. I think he's going to be a hell of a chase. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, definitely.
Covers the ground, pulverised his field at Haydock. I backed the second horse and he was off the bridle, virtually in the parade ring. It was incredible. Obviously, a lot depends on where next destination goes. If he doesn't go here and runs well in the Ballymore, then that will frank the form, boost the form for Cracking Smart. Santini's a horse I like, but how Blackop didn't beat him at Cheltenham last time out is a mystery. Yeah. I mean, he travelled like the best horse in the race. Tom Scudamore said 1, 2, 3, and the horse went 4. He landed on all 4s, lost his momentum right at that bottom, and then he had to get up again. And he should have won that day, Blackop. But he's a really nice horse. He's deceptively quick, Blackop. He's got a lovely long lolloping stride, but he goes a good gallop. And he's entered in the Ballymore. I'm not sure what Tom George is going to do yet. But whatever happens with Blackop, I think he's a horse to be very, very interested in.
Blackop 20 to 1 with Betfair. Any other of these novice hurdlers take our
I've won on a few horses. Enniscoffey Oscar won the Grade 2 at Doncaster, and Paisley Park comes second in the Warwick behind Mr. Whipped, and second at Donny in a novice hurdle. 2 nice horses that stay very well. I can see them actually running into a place. They're both improving with each run, as Emma's do, and they'll both appreciate the better ground. So I think they're about 33 to 1, both of them.
25s, yeah, both 25s, yeah.
So there wouldn't be much between either of them either. So I can see them, Mr. Whip's half the price, and Santini that won the race at Cheltenham, Emma also had a horse in there that wouldn't be as good as the other two, really. The Russia Counter was going to finish third that day and fell at the last, but he wouldn't be as good as them two. So just going on that line of form, I could see them, running well at the prices.
And just mention Paisley Park.
Yeah.
You've ridden. He must have a hell of a engine to overcome the sort of novice errors he's been making.
He's hell of an engine. He wouldn't be the easiest in the fact he'd have done plenty of schooling since now to Cheltenham, which he needs to, because his jumping's not good enough on
Seems
his
to
last
look after himself a bit. Would that be a fair?
one.
He sort of just wants to put an extra little stride in.
Yeah, that'll come. But I'd say it was more novice. He wouldn't have jumped a load of hurdles for his first run at Hereford, and 3 of the hurdles were out that day. So and then he was chucked into a grade 2.
Yeah.
So he's a lot better than what
Yeah.
He's improving with each run, and he's got high cruising speed. His jumping, that's the only thing that needs to brush up. But I think that he's done a lot more since his last run to this run. So
Good. Yeah.
Any more to add? Or on to the big one?
Well, I was with Tom George a couple of days ago at the Cheltenham conference, and he was saying that Black Hop has an awful lot of speed as well. So he'd be keener to run him in the Ballymore, but obviously he'll make the decision with the owner. But the Henderson camp is quite funny because they're very, very 50-50 between the camp, between Santini and Chef de Zobo. So it's quite funny because they would very much be split between them all. I know they think an awful lot of Santini as well. So very interesting couple of runners, interesting race because it is very open. So
presumably with those two, it's pretty ground dependent, isn't it? Santini's probably the better on good ground and vice versa.
Exactly. We haven't talked about ground much, have we? What's it favourite to be? I mean, Simon Clace, he was Wednesday. It'd be a good ground by the Friday.
well,
More likely to be better
It's
on the better
impossible to
side.
guess, isn't it, at this start?
Especially with
But
this weather
Simon
outside
Clace
as
was
well.
saying he thinks it's going to be more like soft on the first day.
Really?
Yeah. With all they've had a lot of snow there, and then that's going to get into the ground, and they've got a lot of rain forecast next week. So
Yeah.
Sounds dangerous.
it's good for you in the Arkle, mate.
Yeah, very good.
Yes, here we go.
I was
Or is he
slightly
just
rejoicing behind them.
Is he telling you that so you run?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he was telling all of us, to be fair. So.
So moving on now to the big one, the Gold Cup. Just to go through the market quickly, you've got Might Bite as the favourite at 4-1, Native River at 13-2. That's stand out with Betfair. Seems to be saying that a lot today. Sizing John 7-1 with Sporting Bet, R Duke 10-1 with Sporting Bet, Road to Respect also 10s, Kiltalovic 10s across the board, and about 20-1 Bar. Hard to say whether or not it's a good Gold Cup. Probably not. Having said that, Might Bite represents decent form at 4s.
I think so. I think he's an absolute freak, Might Bite. I mean, I just think the way he does that, he was idling hugely when he won the RSA.
If he wasn't so quirky, he would just be, the biggest monster ever.
I think he's
he?
an absolute aeroplane.
He's his own worst enemy, almost.
I think so, and I don't think
Or
he
his
was
father
tired
is.
in the King George.
Well, exactly, Scorpion. Yeah, I wouldn't, argue
The
with
interesting
that.
thing was, I was before the King George, I spoke to Nico about him, and he basically said that he's not quirky. Like it's just that one last
Jockeys
year.
are always positive.
And then then you see what happens. So I think there seems to be
He's trying to keep the ride on it.
There's a theory that he's just on the race course. Basically. I mean, you'd know more than me about the character of these horses, but
Well, how do you define quirky? I mean,
His sire is renowned as quirky.
yeah, exactly.
It's Scorpion.
He is a quirk,
and he
isn't
would
it?
be
If
the
he's
best
pulling
one.
himself up the
Yeah.
running, he is a quirk. You can't. I don't think you can argue with that. But I mean, I'm a huge Native River fan personally. I just think it was one race too far last year. He won a Hennessy and a Welsh National so impressively, and that must have taken a hell of a lot out of him. So I felt that his run in the Gold Cup, even finishing third, wasn't his true running, and it's all about being about the Gold Cup this year. And I thought his prep run was outstanding the other day, and I just, my preview evenings last season, I was all over Native River, but obviously, worried about the fact he's had such hard races. But this year is his year, I think.
yeah, it said 13-2 is stand out with Betfair. Andy, how are you approaching this one?
Harry's virtually read my script with Native River. I did all that work.
Sorry, mate.
Yeah, I think the Tizzards learnt their lesson from last year. Obviously, they started off as a handicap and they went through the handicap route quite rightly, Welsh National, blah, blah, blah. But he had a head of a lot of hard races, and it just slightly took its toll in the Gold Cup. I mean, he ran well and he finished third behind A good winner, Sergeant John. But I think they've sat down and thought, right, we're going to leave the early part of the season alone. We're just going to give him one run just to put an edge on him. And his one run was a very good one. It might have only been a 3-runner race, but he ran the last circuit exactly the same time as Altior did in winning the Game Spirit. I think it was 3:17.5, 3:17.3. So it was showing you that he was running at 2-mile championship pace on the last circuit. And he absolutely broke the heart of that very good horse of Malcolm Jefferson's. The grey, Cloudy Dream,
Cloudy
who
Dream.
looked as though he was just going to come and take him down the straight, but he just couldn't keep up in the end. A lot of people thought he didn't stay, but it was the fact that Native River completely, sucked the life out of him. So we know he goes around Cheltenham. He was second behind Milena Rocco over 4 miles, but the key is he's fresh. A lot of these have had hard races this season. I respect Mike Byth, but 3 mile 2 around here. If it was soft, I think you've always got to have it at the back of your mind. Is that the kind of test that he would want? He's never really run on bottomless ground over a stiffer track, over a trip like that. So it's all right to say, no, he's the best horse. But under any conditions, any good horse like that can get found out. I do think Duke's a massive player. He did really well to overcome a bad mistake at Gowran. He's not a bad jumper, but for some reason he just took his half the ball there. I think he would have won the 3 mile race at Leopardstown had he not rubbed. Robbie Power kind of like just didn't really know what to do coming to that fence. He was in front. He thought, shall I sit, shall I not? And the horse kind of just got in tight, and he slipped on landing. It wasn't necessarily a bad blunder, but if he jumps a clear round, we saw what he did in the Irish National. He's a very, very good horse, Duke, and he's not devoid of speed as well. He was second to Disco in the Flowglass last year. So those have been my two against the field, Duke and Native River.
Duke 10-1, Native River 13-2. A word on Sizing John now, obviously last year's winner, a poor run last time out. 7-1, the same price he went off last year. Do we see any interest there at all?
You have to respect. He did win last year. You have to respect him, And I think Robbie Powell was always going to ride him over Duke. 1, he's probably retained by the owner, and 2, it was last year's Gold Cup winner. So you have to, but you have to respect him. He's been there and done it on the big stage, and you have to give him that. But on like what we've seen this year, you can't really go with him, can you?
It is so difficult for horses to go back to back. I mean, Corto couldn't do it, Denman couldn't do it. You've got to go back to best mate really to see. It just really does take its toll. It's a brutal race. And
stats are not in his favour.
Stats are definitely not in his favour. And he kind of got away with the 3 mile 2 last year because it was nice ground. I'm not saying he doesn't completely stay, but if it was a real proper test, and given that he got found out last time, I'd have my doubts. I'd sooner back Duke at a bigger price. And
are we forgetting Ed Wolf?
Yeah, I was about to say the Lazarus horse.
Yeah. Well, given a great ride that way by Derek O'Connor, I can see him doing the same. And if Mike Byte and Native River and Duke took each other on up front, it's for him to come and pick up the pieces, isn't it?
Yeah, Ed Wolf is 25-1, obviously much shorter than he was a couple of months ago. Anyone else at bigger prices we can see getting involved?
No,
really,
no. I think Mike Byte, I like him, but I'd almost rather see him in the Ryanair. I think it's a valid point about the trip, and he races so exuberantly. But I think for me, it's not really a betting race, but it'll be a fascinating race.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned Killal Vic, have we? Who probably would have won had he not fallen last time. But that's the problem with him. He has got a serious issue when the fence. It's almost sometimes you blindfold him. I mean, he made about 5 or 6 horrendous howlers over hurdles the time before when he won, and still managed to be victorious. But
it's been quite entertaining.
It's very entertaining. Yeah, not if you back him at a short price. But yeah, it's a cracking Gold Cup. I think it's devoid of a little bit of a marquee name other than the favourite, but it's nonetheless more fascinating.
Right, there is a Gold Cup preview. I think Native River seems to be the one people are leaning towards with a nod to Mike Byte as being a worthy favourite. On to the Fox Hunters now. We are on the home stretch in our podcast here on finally going up that hill. But Fox Hunters, again, it's not one that I think we can really dig down deep into, so just going to ask you guys if there's any horses that we should keep an eye on.
I'm a West Country boy, so I hear a lot about the points around us, and the big talking horse is Cater Burley, originally with Paul Nicholls, and I shouldn't say this, but more or less Paul Nicholls, but it's not actually his name. Rose Loxton, who's one of the head girls at Paul's Yard, trains it in her lunchtime. So, I can't believe Paul hasn't took it back into his yard and run it in his name, which he's done in previous years. But it is running in her name. Rose Loxton.
Paul says his best chance of a winner of the week is Wonderful Charm.
I know, which was but I think actually Cater Burley
between the two of them.
Yeah. So Cater Burley has been rocking up, and I think Will Biddick, who's champion point rider, rides Cater Burley, and he was a Paddy Power winner, or second in the Paddy Power off top weight, so he's a classy horse. Paul says Wonderful Charm, but the only thing is if the ground's going to come up soft, Wonderful Charm has always been affected by his wind, and he needs proper good ground, which he had last year when he was second. But in my opinion, when he got to Pasha de Polder, he sort of stayed there, he didn't really go by. So I think Wonderful Charm, especially at 10, his wind's certainly not got any better. So he's sure to be given a good ride by Samuel Cohen, but he's always had trouble with his wind, and he needs better ground. And he looks good rocking up in Musselburgh in 4-runner races, beating proper hunters, But I think when he's again his wind does catch him. And I actually like Verac, always he was sort of in no man's land as a handicap chaser. He's sort of top end of the handicap, not quite graded level, and he's got Lorcan Williams riding, good amateur, up and coming amateur. So Cater Burley and Verac, I think. Paul Nicholls, it saved him last year to get a winner, and whether it's Rose Loxton's this name or Paul Nicholls is, but I think they're certainly they'll be thereabouts in the finish.
Cater Burley is 12-1. That's with Hills and Betfair, which seems like a big price. Virac 14-1. Paul, I just wanted to ask you guys about, because it was a fascinating kind of gamble, I guess. Warden Hill that beat Pasha de Pol the other day opened up 40-1 the night before and went off twos. Trained by Mrs. H. Connors, owned by John Chatfield Roberts, and ridden by Mr. Chatfield Roberts' son. Went off 100-1 last year and came nowhere, and is now 33-1, having beaten Pasha de Polder. And obviously, you'd assume that people involved knew that the 40-1 probably wasn't a fair
I think
price.
Pasha de Volga was probably vulnerable that day because he hadn't run for a long time, had difficult training prep, and the girl was having her first ride under rules.
Yeah.
And so the form probably looks better than what it actually was.
Fair enough, that is me told. Anyone else with the book something?
Nothing for me.
No, strangely enough, I haven't got one of the few races I haven't got a strong opinion on. I don't follow the Hunter Chase.
Come and live in the West Country here all about.
Yeah, I know, I should do. Yeah, I need some lessons.
It's good to get that inside scoop though from Nick, because certainly it's a race that's hard to really approach with much confidence. On to the Mulsanne Pipe now. All the money recently has been for Dortmund Park. I'm going to ask you guys if there's anyone you fancy, anyone you're looking at.
The thing to mention here is that Gordon Elliot's always hungry to win this race, obviously being the ex-pupil of Martin Pipe. He had a gazillion attempts at it, and he finally won it last year with classic, whatever it's called, I can't remember its name now. So Dortmund Park is definitely one to consider. He was fourth in a reasonable graded race last time out behind Tower Bridge, but he's got the kind of profile that would suggest that he will go well. He's got a touch of class. And also, Willie Mullins has got a good record in this race. Bearing in mind he's won it with Sir de Grugy, Don Polly and Kalulta Vic, who've all gone on to be Grade 1 chasers. He only usually runs his best novices in this. And he's got a whole multitude of horses. And that horse I mentioned early on, Sands End, he's one of them.
20-1 Sands End.
So just keep your eye on those two trainers. Dortmund Park would definitely be the pick of Gordon Elliott, and whatever Willie Mullins runs.
Dortmund Park is 16-1. That's a Betfair, and 20-1 Sands End. Anyone else for any more?
Dave Pipe's bound to win it one year, and he's only got Mr. Big Shot, so I'm going to say him.
Mr. Big Shot is 25-1, 365 and Sky Bet.
He's got to win it one year.
One year, 25-1.
One out for
yeah, make everyone be a very popular winner. And last but possibly least, going to look at the Grand Annual just to close. Again, anyone that you guys think we should be looking at here?
Dandridge. It's a run. I mean, he always seems to run well in it. Arthur Moore's horse.
Dandridge 25-1 with Betfair.
It's just such a hard race.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Yeah. San Benedetto, a horse that you know, Nick, that you've won on before.
Yeah, won a Grade 1 on him.
Yeah.
Probably the luckiest Grade 1 ever, but
Still a Grade 1.
I personally think he's victim of his own success winning that Grade 1. He's rated 1.54, is he 5.6? Like, great horse, tough as old boots, but the handicap, I know that if he he's just not handicapped to win the ball, and he's not quite graded level. It's very hard for him.
Perfect. And now we have it. We've gone through the whole week. And just to close, going to ask all of our experts here for their nap of Friday. Coming to you first, Nick.
I'm going to go Kate Burley and the Fox Hunters.
Kate Burley and the Fox Hunters, like it. 12-1. Harry?
It's a split between Hunter's Call and Native River. I'll go with Hunter's Call, I think.
Hunter's Call, 10-1 there.
It gets in you.
Mike, coming to you next.
Farclat, strong each way there in the Triumph Hurdle.
Farclat, 8 strong each way. And to close with Oddschecker's resident tipster, Andy Holding.
Yeah, it's quite difficult to have a real dogmatic view on the last day without knowing exactly what the ground's going to be after 3 days racing previously. So I've sat out quite a few of the races, but the strongest one the strongest view I've got is the Triumph. I'd be torn between Stormy Island and We Have a Dream. Having backed them both.
Say split stakes.
So, but out of the two, if you had to know my colours to them, it has to be Stormy Island.
Stormy Island at 8-1, and I'm going to say one because it's the last one. Shetter's Oboe if it's soft. You heard it here, so we're basically So that comes to a close. The Oddschecker Cheltenham preview podcast. Thanks very much to you guys for listening, and thanks very much to the guests. If you want to see our faces whilst we're doing this, you can look on YouTube, and they'll be up there on Monday. Thank you.